So looky here. So now we are doing something new for this wonderful Sales Appeal YouTube channel, and most likely repurposed content in different channels as well. But I thought, I sat back, I said, how else can I make this more fun with creating content around sales where I can blend some of my talents with sales and also interviewing people. And I said, I know some great people that have some talent in the old sales world. And I said, man, it would be nicer to have them come on and share some of their ideas and their thoughts and their approaches, certainly their stories about how they got into sales, what companies they worked for, what type of approaches those companies suggest to these guys, how they lead teams, what processes they're involved in. And I got my man, Mr. Derek Hutchison right here. Me and this dude go back some years. Derek's one of the rare guys that I actually still talk to, that I talked to back when I was getting all messed up in my party days.
Dude,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Congratulations, man, on being sober, bro. 6 years. That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Started the journey.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, man. And, it's been great. Have a lot of fun on this side of it. And it's been epic, so to say. Obviously, a lot of my development since then has been in sales, and obviously SalesAppeal is built out of that. But I want to talk to you about it, man, because I know when I met you, you were hammering it with ADP. You were selling payroll services to small business, and probably some other ancillary stuff in there. You could bring us up to speed there. And currently, you've jumped into the medical space. I think medical device, right? Was it medical device?
Yeah, medical device is the term I like to coin them.
Medical device, yep. And you've been enjoying that. Had a strong pivot there. But talk to me, man. Like, what made you want to get into sales in the first place? Where have you found some of the successes? Tell me some of the uglier days, man. I mean, it's a free for all, and I just want you to share your best self with us here, and then from there we'll keep directing it in a healthy direction for people to take some value out of this.
Yeah, man. So my dad is a CPA, so he has clients that kind of do everything, right? And growing up, stuff in tax returns, I would always see people's W-2s, how much they make, doctor this, lawyer that, didn't really want to go down those career paths, but one of his best friends is a really good all-state sales agent. And he's like, sales is a great career. You just, talk to people, so, they're hustlers, right? And I've always kind of been a hustler, had little side jobs. Like through college, I had a petty cab business.
Nice.
Just determined my own rates and would drive drunk people home from the bar. So I would but on a cab, right? The little bicycle cab. So I'd be like, hey, it's $20. It's $40. It's 2 a.m. You ain't getting a cab this late. It's a 2 mile ride, right? So that's kind of where it started for me. Was more in college, just because I was like, hey, like I can make as much money as I want by how hard I work, right? So giving up on Friday night or Saturday night, I was like, entrepreneur, like determine my own rates. Like, what's my value? Trading time for money, right? Like that's purely what it was. So I realized that in college when I was like just broke.
I love it, man. So you mentioned being, you say you consider yourself a hustler. What do you define that as, man? Because I think a lot of times today, what has evolved from the sense of what hustle really means. I think you and I are.
Yeah, a hustler is somebody that will refuse to say no. Like they don't give up when they hear their first no, right? Like that's the hustle and the flow, right? Like you're going to get rejected. But you have to show up. You have to get out there and put your name in the hat, right? If somebody uses somebody, hey, put me next on your list. Like having that resiliency, that thick skin, like that's a hustler. Somebody that just shows up and punches into the office, being ready told what to do. Like that's an order taker, right? Yeah. Like somebody that's imaginative, that's thinking outside the box, that's thinking for themselves, right? Because they got to provide. Nobody's providing for themselves. Nobody's going outside their door or logging in to hustle, like whatever their business is, right? So hustle, work ethic, call it what you want to call it. But
I love it.
What I thought of like, all right, cool, I'm getting off my butt and I'm like getting to work, right?
Was there something that helped you realize that? Or was it sort of just like, well, this is what's in front of me, I'm just going to go into it, and I enjoyed the idea? Or did you, I know your dad was a CPA. Do you think there was some entrepreneurial spirit there, or was there some other influence along the way
So, I mean, I grew up playing soccer, right? Hustle, right? Hustle, work hard, work ethic, teamwork, right? So that's kind of where like I want to win and beat everybody. Like, I still think that to this day. So like competition, it's me versus you. Like, it's me versus myself a lot of the times. There's always somebody that you're competing with. You just have to get it framed where you're not, I don't let anybody affect what I'm doing, right? So develop the goal, hustle.
I like it.
My dad, single, it has his own CPA firm, like 2,000 clients, like the guy crushes it, always been self-employed, never been told what to do, show up. He's just owned up until April 15th, the tax deadline, right? So, but he works, 6 months a year, you know what I mean? Like, he works more than that, but, he has his time where he's busy and, the rest of the time he's catching up, doing extensions, but his main time where he works is very like targeted, right? Very deep work,
Sure.
right? So, and that's kind of what I've really been getting into, is just being able to trying to focus on one task at a time, one career move, like go all in, whatever you're going to do, just do one, you can really get at one thing.
Yeah. It's solid. It's funny you bring that up, because I was just talking about that today with Katie, about like how people that get really successful at something usually do one thing for a long time, and they blow up after year 10, 15. You're like, wow, why is that person so successful? Because they picked an industry, they shot up through it, and next thing you know is they're hitting home runs, man. It's like, well, that's pretty neat. But that's what's hard for most people, is it. But by the way, it's hard for most people, but it also I think kind of happens in formula, because in sales, for example, if you're good and you're getting better, there's always a better opportunity for you in sales, man. I mean, it's always like, hey, how can I sell the next thing that's going to make me a $500,000 commission with a relatively similar sales cycle, versus, a $5,000 commission where I'm, really kicking and scratching and clawing my way through that. You seem to have had some of those different experiences, right? So was your first sort of corporate sales gig, was that with ADP? Was that your first, or did you have something before that?
So actually, my first job out of college was at a timeshare resort here in Las Vegas, the Wyndham Grand Desert, which is across from Hard Rock. And I got a job there as an activities like coordinator. I had my internship there as a hotel management. And then I saw these sales guys walking around doing the timeshare presentation, right? Hungover couple, the typical like being drugged through, like the guy was wearing the fancy suit. Yeah. I'm like, how much money does that guy make?
Right.
And one of the people told me, they're like, yeah, he's probably the top guy. He makes like, $40,000 a month. I'm like, get out of here. Like, I need to get up into that, Yeah,
you're like, I make 40,000 in 4 years right now. I was like,
I make $12.20 an hour. My take was literally like $800 like every 2 weeks to this property.
That's incredible.
But yeah, that was kind of like the intrigue to me. I was like, wow, yeah, like I want to get into that. So dove into timeshare sales, did some marketing. Like, so I set up the tours for timeshare. That was more of my feel versus having to like sell my soul in the timeshare business. Like, kind of, there's a lot of people that pitched heat, like, oh, you can use your timeshare to stay in a castle in Switzerland and go on a cruise, and they can't do none of that. Like,
sure,
I get deals and lie to people so I can only sell something that I believe in, and that's what I feel like anybody in sales, like, you have to believe in your product. If you're full of it and your product is full of it, like, those are two combinations that literally, like, you'll fail. Like,
right,
some point you're gonna fail. So got out of that timeshare job about 4 or 5 years into it. Worked at a couple properties, went to Montana, ran my buddy's resort, got some great experience. I can go back to hospitality anytime that I want. I just hate, working weekends, nights, and holidays. I'm just not into it. So that's when I found ADP. My best friend is he's in medical sales. He's like, dude, you got to go get a job if you want to do medical sales in payroll, uniform, or copiers. Like, those are the 3 big industries that these medical device companies hire out of. And that's literally like the bread and butter. So I researched, I found ADP, gold standard in what they do, Fortune 500 company, great benefits, salary plus commission. Salary's dog crap, but it is what it is. Like, that's pays your taxes and gets your benefits and health insurance, right? Company car allowance. So, I mean, a lot of these companies will offer you packages in whatever one of those 3 industries, right? The Xerox, the Cintas, selling uniforms, right? If you want to sell copiers. So, I mean, do your due diligence, but like I found ADP, had an awesome career with them. And that's kind of when I met you, was midway through my career over there.
That's pretty incredible that I didn't see, even us knowing each other. You may have said this to me, but I didn't remember that you had a plan to go to med device. So I think that's what you just said. And correct me if I misheard you, but you had a plan to go to med device and they said go through payroll, to which is why you staggered yourself from ADP. And now you're ultimately in the position or direction that you want with, I'm sure, a bigger, brighter future. That's incredible, man. I didn't know that. I'm genuinely like, I didn't realize that. That's pretty awesome.
And it was crazy because literally after the second year at ADP, I, got my first President's Club. Like I literally could have left ADP at year 2 and then went right into medical, but I like fell in love with the product, fell in love with the process, fell in love with, they're sending me on company trips and treating me like royalty. I'm making $100,000 a year. I'm making $150,000 a year. I'm making the best money I've ever made. Why would you want to leave such a good, cush job? And that was kind of the predicament that, I found myself, and a lot of my colleagues are still there because it's a great company. They love the culture. They're comfortable, right? Like I just need a little bit more. And, when felt like I was ready to move on, that's when I was like, all right, I got to go and let's start rocking it out and see what's out there in the medical field.
And that's what's great about sales, man. It's like, once you get good at it, you essentially can write your own ticket. And regardless of what industry it is, it pretty much, there's different timelines in which cycles are either, I say, deepened in terms of, lengthened, or shortened in terms of, speed to deal close. Longer sales cycles, those are probably, some of your bigger ticket items. You're selling, something for $1 million plus, mid to low
or something.
Yeah. So for you, first of all, that's awesome, man. And I think a lot of people, because I know that a lot of people will listen to this that come from different areas, different backgrounds, different levels of curiosity. So, $150,000 in sales is, fantastic, kind of getting started, man, and going through the process. So, a reminder to people out there how fruitful, sales is and what it could do for you down the road. But let's just, go back to the ADP point. What are some of these things you're learning in real time, lessons you took away from being there, and even some of the challenging times and the struggles, man, where you maybe have felt defeated? Or it's a loaded question, but it's also got multiple points. I'm sure you'll touch on all of them because you're a smart guy. But, lessons, got my butt kicked, wanted to quit, and I know you probably didn't want to, but you certainly may have had the thoughts because that's what humans like us do, and sort of what that company did for you, right? I know you made the money, but.
Yeah, so no, it's a great question, and it's easy one to kind of answer all in one scenario. But the medical field hires out of ADP for a couple, and those 3 other industries for a couple reasons, right? These companies have top training programs. I was flown out to New Jersey on several different occasions for different levels of training, from best practices from all the top reps around the country. They're very virtual with their training. They're very regimented. Like, you're learning the sales process. You're learning the steps of the sale. You're learning the questions to ask. You're listening. You're knowing the objections. So first and foremost, training program. That's key. And that's what's so cool about what you're doing, is because big companies realize how valuable training is, right? So medical companies don't want to hire a rep that's not specifically trained to be an outside beast to beast hunter. And that's what ADP trained me to do.
So let me jump in. That's a big deal, what you just said. That's a golden nugget. You just said something that people that are listening right now realize. Those companies don't want to hire somebody that's not trained, that can't be an outside beast hunter. So you've basically just admitted that your path, you were trained to be able to go out and find business crazily, like a beast, like a lion, because if you can't do that, they don't want you.
100%. And if you're working at ADP longer than a year, you've already made it the first 6 months. Most people, I've seen so many people get hired right out of college or right from their other sales job at Enterprise Rent-A-Car or whatever industry that they came from, thinking that they could hack it, and they couldn't, man. ADP, we would have dedicated call blocks on Fridays to set up our appointments for the next week, calling through a Salesforce list of 200 businesses in the territory, right? People that have already called them 5 or 6 times, but still trying to get that appointment, going through the lost client list, going through people that left ADP, that went to Paychex, right? But you're calling them back. You're like, hey, I'm from the win-back team. Let's get right. And they're like, you know what? You screwed me, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I know if they're still chatting with me, I got a shot, be like, hey, how much you paying with Paychex? And then that opens up the door, right? Just give me a little bit to get in, right? So, I mean, that's really what ADP was about, man, was seizing the day on every type of prospecting opportunity, right? So either calling through the phone list, right? If you're fortunate to have one, or go for prospecting, going in, I had 89141, dude, which is a very tough zip code in Las Vegas. And I'm out there prospecting in the Las Vegas heat, bro, hitting 10 businesses in the center, right? Hey, popping in, have my talk track ready. I do their payroll. I'm here to visit the neighbors. Who is the business owner here? They're not here. All right, I'm getting details. I'm getting how they did I'm uncovering information. So when I call that business owner back, because I'm finding out that information from the front desk person. All right, hey, who should I talk to? All right, how many employees y'all got? How much this? Do you know how you do your payroll or if you get direct deposit? So I'm just doing like intel, like groundwork for when I do call that guy back on my Friday, because I have 100 business cards that I picked up because I would hold myself accountable. Like we had metrics at ADP. They're like, hey, you got to hit, this many 20 businesses a day. You're going to get 20 cards, right? At the end of the week, you're going to have 80 of those business cards, right? And you have the notes of everybody that you talk to. So it's a very regimented business. And dude, I carry all of that right over to my job right now. It's crazy. Like,
you fired me. You're firing me up, bro. I mean, I love how excited you are about this, because I'm like, I got a million questions. But so it's safe to say that you were held accountable, number one, by your team lead or director, or whoever the VP was. So that was important, what you just said. You had a standard that you had to live up to. Were they checking on you to make sure you followed through on that? And if you did not follow through, then you were at risk of losing your position, which means that sucks because I'm making great money here potentially. Like, what did that look like?
I mean, not necessarily per se. Like if you're not hitting your sales number, like, and they're micromanaging you, they're on your ass, like, hey, your calls doing this. So fortunately, I've never had to be in that position where like they're looking over my back. I just made sure I got it done, or my numbers never got that bad, right?
Because you're an anomaly, right? So like you're the rare cat. But for the rest of the guys,
no, necessarily. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to have, like, my managers were always there for me as much as I needed them, right? Like I need my managers on more like administrative burden that would allow me to go out and keep selling, setting appointments, versus checking on tax issues for a client that it's going to take me 2 hours on customer service. Like I can have her be at the office. She could be on speakerphone helping another rep and do that. And it's like a non-issue to have, 5-minute phone call for me, right? So that was the support that I need. And I think that's what it comes down to, man. Every rep is different. If you're on a team, like you utilize your leader, like they should be your cheerleader. Like, what do you need me to do? Like right now, dude, I have one of the best managers I've ever had who just loves me to be me. And he's just there to support me. He's like, dude, what do you need from me? This is what the number is. Hey, we'll get him next month. Like always having that positivity in your corner is huge, right? If I resented my manager, it would make it way easier to quit. There's so many times where it's just the hardest door to open, Manny, is your car door. Like when you're prospecting, I can't tell you how many times ADP when I was new, or even when I had my medical device job, when I'm new, I'm going into a hospital I've never been into, or a doctor's office. It's like, you get those jitters, but once you get going, then it's like a non-issue. It's easy. It's like you're just being yourself. Don't be fake. Like have fun. Like have fun the other day, because guess what? There's another door that you're gonna be able to walk into. There's another customer. Like that's out there, right? Like don't get butthurt if you can't hit everyone.
What's the line you just said? The hardest door to walk into is your car door?
The hardest door to open is your own car door.
Is your own car door.
Your own car door. So you go up to that prospect, that business complex, right?
Yeah.
Saying, yeah, dude, it was like a saying that I remember I was having with another rep. We were just talking about, and there's times where it's 2:00 in the afternoon, and I'm in the middle of this, I'm on my way home. I just want to go home and hit the gym before the rush. But it's like, you're going to get that business owner on that, eighth or ninth door that you walk into, and they're going to be like, it's going to be perfect timing, and it's going to make up for all of those heartaches, right? And it's just going to happen because it's just a numbers game. Like literally it's a numbers game of just talking to people. And if you're not doing that, then you're just sitting on the sidelines while guys like me and your competition are going to be out there doing that, right? And there's so many different ways to prospect. Like that's what I love about sales, and especially outside sales, like for a company like ADP, because you can get business in so many different ways, right? I would go to networking events and develop relationships with bankers and different partners and get people that would like look out for me for their clients, or other sales reps that are selling other products to business owners, right? I would go prospecting with them sometimes. Like, cool, you sell merchant services, I sell payroll. You got some clients we can go visit? Hey, let's go visit a client. We'll go visit one of my clients. You work with it, and then you walk into a business, you prospect around those clients. Yo, Derek and Manny, here visiting our clients. I do their merchant processing. Derek does their payroll. We just want to stop in and say hello, see if we can, help you out, right? And see where it goes from there. Like you literally, when you have a second person with you, it's way easier to do. I'm kind of doing that with my job right now. It's freaking hilarious because in my field, there's a robotics rep, right, that sells the Da Vinci robot to these surgeons. So like if you have a surgeon that wants to do a hernia, he can do it on the robot, or he can do it on like laparoscopically or open or different, whatever his technique is. But these robot reps want these surgeons to do these basic hernias on the robot, even though the surgeon can do it open, or he can do it any technique. He doesn't have to do it on the robot, right? So it's funny because now I can work off of him, like, hey man, where are you at today? What are you trying to work on? I sell mesh for all the surgeons, whether it's a robot or open and not, right? So it's a win-win for me to like piggyback off of him and go prospect some new doctors that he's with, right, at the base or at different hospital or facility that I want to get into. So my point being is you can work off other people's energy, and when get into different clients by working with other people.
And you do a good job of that, man. You've always been such a great extension of help, and that whole idea of service first, certainly in my knowing of you. So have you found that part of your process sort of a skill set that you had or you were taught in addition to having to learn the skills? I mean, I get the sales skills, handling objections, building the value, but then there's also hey, I have to go out and build another channel of relationships to circumvent potential roadblocks to get into, meet the doctor in this case. Did that come naturally to you, or did you work on that, or did you, just think differently? Because not everybody, it's not that easy for everybody. I know everybody talks about it, but I certainly some people that were already listening to some of the stuff I created on SalesAppeal's YouTube here, they were younger, they needed some direction. So I'd love for you to share your thoughts on that, because that can give them a little bit of extra oomph to go out there and help somebody build that relationship.
I mean, when any job that you first start, you just have to look at the room and look who's killing it, right? My good friend Clint, who I passed along your information. Hopefully you guys will be able to touch base. ADP, he was like the guy making the most money. I'm like, what is he doing? Clint was going out with his bankers, developing relationships with his CPAs, doing stuff outside of the office, right? Like being able to build rapport, man. People only buy from people and do business from people that they like and they trust. So me as a sales rep, even now, man, it's so weird because it's just so fundamentally true, because you have to get them to like you and trust you, find a commonality with them, become best friends before everything else, because everything else will just come naturally. The business will just come naturally. But they're not gonna do business from you if they don't like you. If they think you're a salesman, or if you're just trying to sell them shit, excuse my French, it's just not gonna happen. And it just sucks, but that's just the way that it is. Like, the people open right up, just get them to like you and get them to trust you.
Yeah. It's almost the same as the delayed gratification versus the instant gratification, and doing it in a way where it's authentically coming from the space of I'm going to help you out here, versus like I'm playing the game. I don't really want to be here, but I have to play the game, and somebody can sense that, and they're like, this dude don't really care. But genuinely wanting to come in there and understand this person, their pains, their problems, building that relationship. And hey, look, that game right there that you just talked about, it might take 6 months, maybe might take a year before they actually want to do something. But guess what? You know what? That seed that you plant today, as long as you nurture it, will reap you a definite reward on the tail end of that thing. That's good. I like that a lot. So talk to me about some of the differences, because I'm actually still genuinely curious about more in sort of the insider details about your sales process now in the med device space. So what's different in essence from when you were doing payroll? I know sales processes for the most part have similar natures, but are you doing anything, obviously outside of selling a different product, being in an operating room and so forth? Has it proved to be a different process entirely, or are you following in suit with sort of what you've done before? What does that whole landscape look like?
It's a different beast, because it's a clinical aspect of everything that I sell, right? Why should I put this in? Is there data behind it? Especially if it's a new product. But selling to, a doctor is very similar to a business owner, right? They're able to make a decision, right? If I can build rapport with them, and you know that they've been using something for 10 years, and it's like, hey, my product will do this and this and this. And, it's honestly, they don't care, dude. They've been using something for 10 years. They don't have issues. Like, they're not hearing me out. But that's just in the OR if I'm trying to sell them, if I'm trying to be like that rep, right? If I take it from, I've learned from taking it from a different approach, like, hey, let's just be friends. Talk to me about where you went to school, what you like to do, where you live in Vegas, what you like to do for fun, right? Like, I'm not talking about anything. I'm just not trying to get kicked out of the room. I'm just trying to like make a friend, right? And I have to make friends with like everybody else in that room. So there's, circulators, there's nurses, there's techs, there's an array of people. I have to deal with hospital management and supply chain issues. So there's a lot of different, I'm just a problem solver, dude. It's cool. It's exciting. It keeps me on my toes, but it's a lot of work. And, it's definitely been a huge adjustment for me of just like moving from that arena of being able to wear a golf shirt and slacks and roll into, a business owner that has 3 employees that owns an automotive shop that just opened, right? So totally different landscape, totally different scenarios, but still like the fundamentals are still the same. Like,
Sure.
Like you and trust you, and then they'll basically buy anything you sell them, right? Because it's good stuff.
Yeah. So you said something important there that I think you said you had to adjust. So what were some of the big, was it some of the way you thought in terms of like content that you were talking about? So you had to learn data, and you had to learn mechanics and all these other different medical terms. Like, was that the bigger adjustment? Or
yeah, but that was a huge adjustment, but also like really understanding how they think, right? And a whole nother level of listening and asking the right questions and not being another rep, right? Like, dude, in the medical field, we have to wear bright red, like clown hats, like these clownette hats. Like all the other nurses and doctors, they wear like the blue ones. They got the little like us as medical reps, like we have to wear these big red caps, dude. So they see us from a mile away. It's for anesthesia. In the room, a patient crashes. We can't do anything. So we have to wear these red hats. But it's very funny because doctors like stay away from us, bro. Like it's hilarious, dude, of like the bad rap that medical reps have. And there's do so, man. Some of them are just terrible, shady people, but the money that was in medical, like with Sunshine Act, is not there nowadays. Now you really got to like work for it. You have to build loyalty with your customers, right? Like there's people that are doing shady things and taking doctors on trips and paying for this and that. Like you can't do that. But people still do that, right? So it's like, and all across the industry. So it's not just my industry or my field. And, it's pretty crazy, man. Medical's a fickle.
What's neat about what you're saying is I look at it from the outside. I don't have as much experience in knowing the medical space, but how if they're pulling, in most cases, the people through that want to be in your space to have your profession, where do the ones that aren't doing it necessarily the right way do you think that they have like a side way to get in the door and then they just mess everything up, so therefore there's the bad rap? Or do you think they're mistrained in their company? Because now I'm curious about how that person is slipping through the cracks and not finding their way to be able to be the best.
Yeah, medical is kind of interesting. Like there's a lot of, Me Too companies like, oh, we're like this, but it's less, right? Like, and then, but those kind of fizzle out because they're just like garbage. They're just garbage companies. Like pretty much there's in my space or in a lot of different, there's 2 or 3 players, right? The bigger companies, right? And that's kind of what I work for. I'm like the ADP mesh, right? And there's a paycheck.
Oh, that's great.
There's another, there's a third mesh company. There's another biologic company. So that, yeah, I have different competitors and different types of environments that I sell in. Especially that I cross sell in now, because I know I can sell in plastic space and stuff like that. So, and it's, the sky's the limit with my company. We got a lot of really good products. It's good to be able to work for a company that like cares. So I can put a lot of money into R&D. Like we are making sure like there's a very regimented process with like, the FDA and getting clearance and this and that. And doctors like genuinely like want to know that like, hey, what's the data behind this and what's this? So. But it's so crazy because I can still present them with all the data and all the facts, and they still won't switch. And it's like, I'm going to waste my time and breath with you and get upset about it because you're always going to think this way. But I'm going to walk and I'm going to meet this other surgeon that just got out of residency that is my age that I can start talking to from the get-go that just got here from the Cleveland Clinic fellowship that he had, right? So now it's like new doctor, right? Or new opportunity to kind of groom him, right? Now that I'm like in this position and more seasoned. So it's just learning, right? It's just always learning, man. Always on top of it. I'm always listening to like the most recent, books and guys in my company that are doing better than me and guys that I like that, hey, it's always just about best practices. Hey, I got out of this case and I got no mesh, or I got this happened. What would you do? Right. Or texting them in the middle of the case. Right. So there's a lot going on that, on the job training, right. Where you're just like learning. Right. And some doctors, like I said, some of them don't care. So why am I going to talk about data and just data dump them? Right. When I think data is the most important thing, they don't care. Is it easier for them to use? Does it have better, like outcomes than what they've been doing for 30 years? Like if it's the same, like I'm wasting my breath. I'm going down the wrong route. I got to come back with a new game plan.
Yeah. You're so right there. We call that value mapping where we are. It's asking them, how they could see themselves benefiting from this, because we say, hey, we got this. How would you see yourself benefiting from that? And they say, oh, I wouldn't. Okay, great. Well, we'll move on. Okay, what about this thing we do? Would you see yourself being able to have some value from that? Would that be having a pretty definitive output and impact? And it's like, yeah, actually that would. Tell me some more about that. What does that mean? And they start eliciting that information. Now that they're helping me load my gun, because I'm going to fire back the same ammunition they just gave me on how to sell them, right? That's
their idea. Right, it has to be their idea. Like,
right.
Can't be but you just have to ask those right questions and like, oh, hey, you said that this is really important to you, So when you're framing, it's just framing it right, the right way.
Yeah, I don't want to keep you all night, but I do want to ask you, like, for some people that are listening, because I think people are going to find this very helpful that you're sharing all this. Fantastic, by the way, Matt. Appreciate you. But sort of the process when you started with your med device company, because you said, hey, you're in the room. My natural curiosity is like, how the hell did you get in the room? How'd you get in the room in the first place to talk to the doctor about that? And like, so, okay, you get hired kind of, A, B, C, D, walk us down the path so people can say, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's something I might want to do. Or maybe I was like, I don't want to do that at all. No interest. So if you lead with that, I'd be
no, totally
excited to hear it.
In medical, there's so many different types of jobs, man. Like that's the first thing I'm going to say. Like there's people that sell capital equipment. There's people that sell catheters. There's people that sell trinkets, towels, you name it, right? So there's some kind of application for what people are selling. My environment is selling in the OR. So I'm not needed for these surgeries. These doctors already know how to use mesh. I'm just like there for like tips and tricks to like help the techs make it simple, make it easy, make it seamless, there to help out, right? But it pretty much like I just chase cases, man. I gotta find out where my docs are operating. There's about 45 to 50 of them here in Las Vegas. So there's 12 hospitals and 10 surgery centers where they're at. So I'm like finding schedules, right? I can find them by their schedulers, by the rapport that I built, by walking in that office, setting up a lunch, meeting the scheduler. Hey, you do Dr. So-and-so schedule? All right, cool. I use their mesh. So like I have literally every Monday through Thursday of like places that I hit to pick up schedules for my doctors so I can plan out my week the next week. So then that way each day I'm like, all right, cool. Doctors here and here. These are the cases I'm going to go to for 2 hours from 10 to 2. And then in the afternoon, I'm going to hit these docs on this side of town for this group. And yeah, man, it's a lot of lunches. It's a lot of dinners. It's a lot of case coverage. It's a lot of rejection. It's a lot of sitting through cases and not getting product used. So it's like, well, shit, I am making no money now. I better just like make the best of this time because I'm like just hanging out with this doctor for an hour, right? Or 3 hours, right? I've had a lot of things happen where I've sat there for multiple hours and been so upset of just like, dang, like I didn't sell anything. I didn't get a PO for this. Like this is very rough. And then it's just next day, whole new lineup, but either that same doctor, maybe they're trialing my stuff, right? So, I literally just stock these doctors just like I would stock business owners at ADP. Very similar because they're the people I'm selling.
So okay, let me cover that back a little bit. So you have 45 to 50 doctors that use your product, right?
That are just surgeons, general surgeons that would potentially use my product.
That potentially use. So how do you have 45 to 50? Why? Because they're specializing in the procedures that you have the product for. Is that it? Essentially, it's
exactly. So there's about like 5 or 6 different types of hernia repairs, and my company, like I said, provides mesh, and there's about 2 or 3 other mesh companies. So however they were trained is typically like the mesh that they use. And like I said, we're pretty like big, so about half the market already uses my stuff. Like that's what they were trained on, and we've been doing this stuff for 80 years. But now with like mesh commercials on TV, right? People suing companies. Like I'm able to play off of those fears, and not of those fears, but I sell a product that goes away. So I have a solution for that, right? It may cost 4x, 5x, but guess what? It goes away. You're not going to get sued, and now you can give the patient a choice, like versus being like, this is what it's going in because that's what's gone in your body since 1954 of basic hernia repair. So getting some surgeons to think differently. It's getting people to, people are worried about what they put in their body now, like just like you and I are. We were talking about the other day about how both of our girlfriends are vegan. Like I eat way more plant-based now because of the health benefits, right? Because our body is valuable. Like the fuel that we put in our body is valuable, right? Like got to put in the best now, like as we're getting older. So people want, I'm trying to frame that with some of these doctors, and it's tough, man. You think it'd be a slam dunk, but it's definitely not.
Oh, certainly with doctors, especially if they've got some years under their belt, man, there's some fixed thinking in there, no doubt about it. So,
it's also, but just on the last thing, but it's like, I sell the doctors, then it's the hospital, and it's like the hospital has to buy my product, right? So the hospital's like, well, why are you using mesh? That's 5 times as much than the regular stuff that he puts in. Then the doctor gets, then I'm like fighting with them. I'm showing them clinical value. So it's like 2 or 3 or 4 people like going into the deep sell, right? Like the back committee at UMC that I'm trying to get my mesh on the board for, right? For a new doc that wants to use it, right? So it's like, it's a lot of hoops, man. Like medical is not, the grass is not always greener. Like that was told to me at ADP very early, because ADP knows how many people that they lose to medical because they're trained around.
Interesting. So interesting. So I follow you on all that. I'm still going back to I chase doctors. The doctors have this potential usage for hernia replacement, and then you find yourself in a room with them sometimes because you've built relationships with the setters, appointment people in the rooms, and you get invited in, or do that the doctor's using your stuff, so then you can have access into the room? Are you
like a little? I've never been kicked out of a room.
I'm so curious. I'm like, okay, so
it's funny. I've never been kicked out of a room, because if you're just only like a jerk off would, if you're if they don't like you, they won't let you in. But
sure,
essentially, like right when I meet them, hey, who's your scheduler? All right, and then I find out, all right, so now I have something, whether I bring the scheduler coffee or once a month, right? Or, I'm doing the lunch, right? Like, I'm definitely like, those are the people that, hey, I'm getting their cell phones. Hey, some schedulers I'll text like, hey, what's this doctor's schedule this week? And I'm like, this doctor is operating here, here, and here, these types of cases. So then I'll like do that for all of my doctors. And then I'll just rank which case I'm going to go to. I just by like what my end goal is of like my commission. So not my commission, but of like what my territory needs. So if I'm selling this type of mesh or this type of case, or we have a different a full bag of products. So I just have to make sure that my time is well spent when I can go to a case that's going to be a $200 case and they're already going to use my stuff, or a doctor that uses my stuff half the time, but it's a much bigger case that could be a $10,000 case. Like, which one do you think I'm going to go to? I'm going to go to that $10,000 case versus that $200 case, but I could totally get nothing and strike out on that case, right? So I have to realize, like, be very valuable. Time is so valuable, dude. Like, you have to be very, very strategic with who gets your time. And I'm not going up to try to just like stand in the room and not make any money. So I'm there to get POs. I'm there to like keep the ball rolling. Like, you have these balls, like, I'm not sure if you follow Ryan Serhant, right? Like, he talks about all the time. He has these balls in the air. You gotta have the balls in the air. Like, it's about to fall, gotta get back down, get it back up in the air, because at some point you're gonna be able to knock it out. But if the time isn't right, then you just have to make the best of your situation, right? And not be negative and get down on yourself, because that's so easy, man. I get off sometimes. I'm like, deep breath. All right, on the next one. There's gonna be more cases tomorrow. I'm gonna get this doctor next week. I'm gonna say this. Like, how can I get better? How can I learn from this?
Do you have a follow-up plan for the ones that you just went through where you get a little bit upset? Do you have
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm like, you know what? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, next month, I'll be back. Like, time's blown over. I have a doc that I told myself, I haven't seen him in a few months, but he's a high volume guy. At some point, I'm going to get him. Like, at some point, like, we have different surgeon education. There's different angles, kind of like with ADP, to like get some of our surgeons on some of our stuff. And, it comes much better when it comes from another renowned surgeon in Kentucky or in Texas or whatever that's doing a webinar for our doctors. So a lot of my time is spent, okay, cool. How can I set up lunches to get in FaceTime? How can I set up a dinner? Hey, do you like to golf? Do you want to golf this weekend? Do you want to go, hiking? Do you want to go out to dinner or lunch with the, whatever the case may be, like with your staff? Like, let's take the robotics team out, for a happy hour. Like, anything I can do to get them outside of the OR is what I've learned that will get their guard down. And to get people to just get comfortable with you, then it's like, it's just like me selling you, hey, Nanny, like, how do you do I'm sure if I had like sold, Verizon cell phone service or something like that, and I was like, hey, dude, like, man to man, like, what are you paying with AT&T? I'll hook you up a better deal. Like, you would probably do it, right? Just because, like, we're boys, I'm gonna save you money, you're gonna get a better product. That's kind of how the level that I try to get to my surgeons. Like, hey, dude, that was a sick drive. I can't believe you put it like into that house. But hey, man, like, your next ventral, will you try like this new mesh that I got? Like, I really want to get your feedback and see if it's something, because last thing I would want to do is like, sell this to sell a faulty product or something that didn't like without the right feedback, right? Or something like that. So it's just different when you're shopping with a friend, or
totally
to a friend. That's kind of my point.
So it's like a double effort. You're going in to the case, you're in the operating room because you've met the scheduler, the schedule, you come in for that. Your mindset is, I want to get something out of this, but at minimum, doesn't happen today, I'll follow up. Part of my tactics are I'll do my best to schedule something outside, build the relationship, and that's going to lead me eventually to him or her choosing to do something in the future with us, whether it's an upgrade, this side tool, whatever. And that's how it boils down to some effect.
Down to essentially, I'm stalking them to get to their case, and then I wait for them in front. So like, I already have my game plan of like what I'm trying to sell the surgeon before I meet them at the case. Like, I'm there to talk to them about this certain, right? So in my head, they're walking up to their room, Dr. Page to room 1, right? I'm sitting in front of room 1, my right red clown hat.
Yeah.
In the roll. Dr. So-and-so, what's up, man? How was your weekend? You know, like shooting it. They're like scrubbing in, you know, they walk in, they put on the gloves. I'm like doing the back of their gown, you know, hey, we got the right music. You know, I'm like DJ, like I'm like the conductor, bro. Like it's so funny with these doctors that are like my buddies. Like boys, like my doc, like one of my guys, he's like really into EDM, Manny. Like it would be like the most ideal doctor you would ever meet in your entire life. Like,
oh, I love it.
music festivals in like Rio. He just DJ'd his boy's wedding. He has like dirty beats on in every room. He brings his own speaker. It's literally like the JBL speaker and just blasts techno, EDM. Like,
oh, that's incredible.
I'm like, bro, send me your playlist. Guess what our in is? Guess what we talk about every time? Music, vacations, all this stuff, dude. So it's like the rapport's there. Now I'm like, hey man, why don't you try this? And he'll try it. What'd you think of that? I liked it. Okay. It's like almost that easy, but it's a totally different way of doing it when I have, you know, Dr. So-and-so who's a, you know, 70-year-old man. He's been doing this for 45 years, man. Like, how am I connecting with that guy? Right? Like it's a whole new angle I'm taking with this doc versus the younger doc or the doc that I have an immediate connection with because I'm able to spot it, right? So I just try to pick up on little things, like get them talking. People like to talk. You got to remember that. You got to shut up. You got to like take a step back, like let them tell you everything that you need. Like, nobody likes a know-it-all. Nobody likes somebody that just takes over the conversation and makes it about them. Then you just lose them.
Yeah.
I go and talk about Nash, blah, blah, blah. They're like, I don't care. Like, I'm just asking the doc before the case, like, tell me about the patient. Like, we're most concerned about the patient. What's going on with the patient? Are they a smoker? Are they overweight? Or do they have multiple surgeries? Like, I'm getting deep into it. So they're focused on this patient. We're walking, hey, is this patient at risk for infection? If they are, hey, I got this mesh that's going to help out with that. So if that's a concern, I'm going to have this in the back for you. And let's just go with what your original game plan is about this case and this patient, right? So whole other approach of having to like take chances, see what happens. If they're non-receptive, I'm doing a lunch. I'm bringing them Capriotti's. We're talking about it over a sandwich. I got my samples. People like to touch stuff. People like to feel stuff. I have my samples on me as well on the field. So I'm having my mesh out there too. What you think of this? You know, always be prepared to like close, essentially, right? Like closed mouths don't get fed. And if you don't speak up, not annoying, but if you just sit back, you know, I've had it happen many times with this job where I was like, dang, I should have said something there. I missed my shot and didn't get to say what I need to say. So it's like, you've got to take advantage of FaceTime in your opportunities.
That happens, man. Yeah, even to the best of them, man. So that's kind of par for the course, but you definitely want to get better. So good what you're saying here. So it sounds like you have like a very narrow window before things start getting kind of hairy in the actual operation, right? It's like you come in pre-case, you're chopping it up, you're building rapport, and then you said something I think which matters most. Not most, in line with a lot of other things. It's not always just something singular, but was the preparation. So you're well prepared long before you get to that moment at that case, because you have to be. It's not like you're just showing up, which I think people need to understand this. Like preparation is a big deal. You know, lots of different people talk about it. And then like, I'm still trying to calculate the value of what the hell you're doing there. You're there because they use product and you're helping them understand how to use your product. I don't know why that one's just not like checking with me, or you just show up as a stranger and they're like,
sometimes if it's a doctor that doesn't use any of my product, I know who uses my product.
Right. Okay, so let me jump in. If they use your product and you're there, you're just like a bonus feature. You're like, hey, I'm just here to help. And you have the privilege to be there. I had no idea. That's like,
and like that's just my in. Like hospital, you know, I'll walk in and you'll have the little nurse at the desk, and she's like, "Who are you?" You know, you have to sign the book or log in. Yeah. The hospital doesn't want random strangers, right?
Of course, that's the thing. I'm like, wait a second.
You know, and so yeah, like you know, I'm vetted. There's a credentialing agency that when I got brought on board with my company that you have to go through, right? Like, so they did background checks. They had to do the drug test. They had to do all that stuff just to make sure I'm not like a psycho in the OR, right? Like it's gonna steal information. Like, and I'm seeing nasty stuff in there, dude. Like it's like gross, bro. Like,
oh yeah.
Hospitals are just disgusting places. Like it's like sanitary from like a sanitation point of view from like in the operating room, but besides the operating room, they're just like, it's like with COVID, you know, everything now it's wild, man. It's crazy.
Well, that even makes me give because I didn't know to the depths, bigger kudos to what you're doing. It's like, you know, I'm not even needed necessarily. I'm just showing up because I can. And I've got this presentation ready, this conversation I'm about to have, and these guys are like, "Are you really here?" But I'm understanding it now, and I think that's just bold, man. And like, especially
some docs may use my mesh if I show up. I know a couple doctors, like if it's like my mesh and the competitor's mesh, and it's like if I'm there and if I'm like pushing it, sometimes they'll feel bad and they'll like be like, "What do you got?" You know, and like I'll just get it because I'm there, right? And it's like I'll take those too. It's just like a sympathy kind of thing. Like they know my company, they know it's like I'm not just like some random, but like, you know, like I pick those battles, right? And
sure.
With surgeons I'm trying to convert, it's like I'm not going after all 45 at one time. Right? I'm making my list of my top 5 users, my top 5 competitive users, figuring out which ones I need to spend a lot more time with, right? My highest volume surgeon that use my stuff, like I'm there I go to the cases, to protect the business, right? I don't want my competitor I don't want my surgeon thinking I forgot about him and my competitor come in and do what I'm trying to do, right? Like it's very like that, you know? And so I'm doing that to protect the business and to potentially like upsell, right? Like I can always upgrade, you know, what they're using, or if they're on my top stuff, just making sure that, you know, we're getting the outcomes that we want, right? Like that there's no issues, because that's why I got this job, man, is to build these relationships with these doctors. So when they have these cases on Fridays or on Wednesdays, I don't have to go to that case. Like they're going to use my stuff because they like me. They know I'm their rep. They believe mainly in my product, right? Like it's the best product, but I'm just a bonus feature. Like they know I got their back. They know that if they call me and dude, it happens like on a Saturday, or they're doing a case on call at, you know, 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, like, yo, Derek, I need this mesh. Like, can you bring me a size? Like, yeah, dude, I'll be there in 15 minutes, right? It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens. And then they remember that, right? Now I know that this doctor, like I have like 4 or 5 of them that like won't ever leave me. Like it's just they've used my stuff forever. They like me. They know I'm their go-to. They know they can just text me if they have an issue, and I'll drop what I'm doing to like make it happen if I can.
Yeah, that's special.
That comes from just servicing your customers, man. That's just basic 101. Whatever you're doing, just stand behind it and help your customers out. Like you got to be there, because if you drop the ball, like you're going to lose that business. And people remember those things.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic, man. So I have one last sort of question before we get out of here, man. To let you get back to your night. I'm so gracious for you taking the time to do this. In that space, you know, for anybody out here that's listening that, you know, might decide to go down that path, it's very financially rewarding, right? So how those types of companies pay you a very nice base, right? From what I understand. So you get a base salary.
But dude, most sales jobs, man, the base, unless you're like in management, managing a team and upper level sales leadership, you're getting a healthy base with those. But sales reps, territory managers, district managers, call us what you want to call it, bases are anywhere between $40,000 and $60,000, right? Like my base, actually I took a base cut coming from ADP to this job, but the commission much larger, different work environment, so on and so forth. So,
got it. So what's a target realistic number to earn into on a commission basis? Is it $500,000, 300,000, 5?
Dude, I wish it was that's what it used to be for sure. I mean, honestly, right now, 125,000 is probably like what the low to mid like average quota achievers are making in medical device.
Got it. Okay.
The top performers are making around 3 to 4. You know, my best friend's crushing it at his other company, selling vascular stuff and the veins, and he's on call doing stuff, and he's going to make $400,000 a year.
Right.
He's an anomaly. He's like literally like you describe a sales rep. That's like what you would want to hire as in my eyes. But so yeah, man. I mean, it's all over the board, bro. It's literally 100,000 is, it should be the minimum of like, if you're not making that in whatever industry that you're in, that's a good baseline of like what you should be making and advice when you're a territory manager. But some companies like mine, if you don't have a lot of sales experience, they'll hire you as an associate, which will basically be like, you'll be like the assistant to the territory manager, where they'll just give you a base, they'll give you some bonuses, you'll make like 60 to 80,000 with the hopes of becoming a territory manager to walk into that 100,000 plus job, but you have to pay your dues, and that's particularly mainly just because of experience or age.
Sure.
In my job, luckily, without having to become an associate because of my experience at ADP, knowing how to run a territory, manage it. So they kind of cut me a break on having to like be somebody's associate, because that was
Yeah. Well, I think I'm proud of you, man. I'm like, you're the quintessential, like, cut your teeth, continue to climb type of guy, and, leveraging previous experience for future growth. And I think you're great. You just mentioned your buddy being an anomaly, man, but I've told you this before separately when we talked. You got a lot of talent, man. So, I'm sure you're learning the sky's the limit. You can turn that, whatever that number is that you're at now, to, 500,000, 750, $1 million someday here, man. So don't slow down on that. But you've been incredible here, brother. I appreciate you, man. This has been fantastic.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate you. If there's ever anything, have anybody.
By the way, this is our first official Sales Appeal series interview that we're, rolling out, man. So you got the first one, baby. Yeah,
man, I'll look forward to the reunion episode here in episode, whatever, 127 or whatever.
That's right, man. Yeah, exactly. Say, yeah, you remember that medical device sales job? Yeah, I own the company now, and now I'm making 30 mil.
Exactly. Man, the thing is sales is one of those jobs, bro, where you literally can make as much money as you want, and you can sell anything. So you can sell cars. You don't have to have the fancy degree. There's a path to get to a medical sales degree job, or a medical job, but there's also plenty of people that are making way more money than me selling tractors, selling, security, ADT, right? Like, the sky's the limit. If you're good with people, like, sales is meant for you. And people just don't realize, I can't be in sales. We're all in sales. I'm something, you're selling me something, where we go to eat, whatever decision that we make, it's a skill that you can develop, right?
Amen.
And learn anything overnight. I wasn't born with this innate ability to like talk to people. Like, I had to learn books. I had to learn read books, listen to people, like, go through it. You have to go through those doors, because you're just not going to walk in and be like, I'm natural at this, I'm going to do everything perfectly. Like, it's going to suck. It's going to be a lot of hard work, but you put it in, and it's a numbers game. It's like Wayne Gretzky, right? Like, you got to take those shots. You're not going to score if you don't shoot. And, just don't be sleazy. Be yourself. And like, people like authentic people. Like, it's easy. This is easy right now, us talking. But if I'm like scripted and robotic and it's like unnatural,
it's so easy, man.
People pick up on that energy. You know what I mean? And you got to have good energy and good juju and good karma, dude. And everything always happens. Everything will always kind of come out the right way.
And that's the mic drop right there, man, because that boy's preaching right now. That boy Derek, he's preaching, man. That boy's gonna be ministry soon, and just and doing it from the big stage, man, just laying it down.
It's gonna be like you, bro.
Hey, man, we're all doing our part here, and again, I'm appreciative of you. It's a blessing to continue to have me, have you in a corner on our team on this side, and for helping out here. This is incredible. So I'm excited to see you continue to flourish, man. Let's keep rocking, baby. And thanks for showing up here today. Not for me, but for everybody else that's going to end up getting a little love on this thing as this thing keeps growing, man. So that's going to be the fun.
Man. Love it, brother. Love to see you, bro.
Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate it, bud. Later.
All right, buddy.